sign out there. Y'all see that? Did you see it? Did you see the sign? That's the important thing, right? That you actually saw it. Yeah, glad y'all are here. So, of course, for the last few weeks, we've been going over our mission statement, right? Our mission statement. We've been going over the kind of different pieces of it. So some of you have seen the vision frame that we put together in the very beginning months ago, and some of you haven't. So we're going to pop that up here right now. So again, we've been over the mission statement for the last few weeks. We kind of broke that apart, the writing together with the freedom in Christ to impact others, what each one of those pieces meant. We kind of went over our name, Biker Church Waco, and why we came up with that, with the intent on multiplying that one day, the ease of multiplying it. That's kind of our vision to do that. So when you look at the rest of this piece, kind of going around the circle there, the values up there on the right, that's top right, that's kind of why. That's the why, why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? This is our core values. The mission statement's the what are we doing? The values is the why. So then you move back around to, let's go over to the strategy. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to accomplish this? And we're going to go over each one of these pieces in the weeks to come. I'll be breaking that apart over the summer, each piece, but the strategy is basically how we're going to do this. How we're going to accomplish getting out there, getting our word out to the biker community, and moving forward. And then the bottom right-hand corner is the when do we know we're going to be doing these things? When do we know we've finished our goals? That's when we've accomplished these kind of four things over here. And again, we're going to be talking about that in the weeks to come. But we're going to be talking about today, and in the next few weeks, is the values. Again, the why. We're going to start off with the Your Life Matters part. Been a lot of stuff about lives mattering these days. Well, your life matters, right? So how do we know? Do we have a passion for longing and passion for moving forward and trying to make sure we have a life that matters? Do we know a life that matters? How many people have meant something to you that you can sit back and say, that person meant something to me. That person's life mattered. Think about it. It's Memorial Day weekend, right? Probably every one of us in here are either related to somebody, know someone, work with somebody who died, sacrificed themselves for the freedom of either us or for someone in a foreign country somewhere else, right? The ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate in having a life that matters, right? Memorial Day. Can't beat that. Then you got to move on. Does your life matter? Is it important to other people that you're around? How often do we kind of sit around and go, why am I really here? Does my life really matter? Do I really matter to anyone? Am I that important? Am I making a difference? Am I making an impact? So just like knowing someone in the military that sacrificed themselves for others, everyone in here is probably close to someone who's taken their own life at some point, right? I have. My best friend growing up, his own mom took her life in front of him when we were in kindergarten. So you can imagine what we had to walk through all the way growing up. We walked together through lots and lots and lots, to the point where when we were seniors in high school, he had finally hit rock bottom. He had finally hit a point in his life, and he never really said it, but it was probably that, he was scared to know what was next. He'd always, for the last 12 years, he'd had the protection of us in school and being around buddies and, friends and family that, cared about him, was around him, but now he's fixing to graduate. He's fixing to be an adult. He's fixing to have to shoot out there and figure out how to do it on his own. So as soon as before we graduated, so when we were seniors in high school, I had gotten him over the course of the 4 years in high school to come to youth group in church. So we'd been walking along beside the youth pastor, at the same time, trying to get him involved. So he trusted him, which was a good thing. Because our senior year, I went to the youth pastor and I said, look, something's the matter with Michael. It's just, something's not right. He's not talking to anyone. He's clamming up. He's holing up. I think he's going down the hole again. So we were able to walk him through that, step by step, day by day. And the minute we graduated high school, he was going to move out of the house. I was going to move out of the house. So we kind of moved out together. We got an apartment together. So I could kind of keep an eye on him, without saying it. So that meant a lot. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to a lot of people. So over the course of time, of course, I always thought to myself, Michael, he didn't have a death wish. But he lived life like there was no tomorrow. You know, he drove his car like there was no tomorrow. He rode his motorcycle like there was no tomorrow. He ate and drank like there was no tomorrow. So unfortunately, in 2019, after 4 marriages and 4 divorces, all this stuff had finally caught up to him, and he did it. So when it just got to the point where he thought, you know, his life just didn't matter anymore, right? He'd gotten to that point. But I knew it mattered to a whole bunch of people, unlimited amounts of people, because when I went to his celebration of life, you couldn't get in the place. It was standing room only. He was a fun guy to be around. I mean, he made an impact with people just by being him. He was a ton of fun. He made an impact on a lot of people. His life did matter. So let's go to Jesus. Let's see what he says about all this. About a life that matters. So what I like to do is I like to go to the Sermon on the Mount. That's a good one, right? Matthew chapter 5 through 7. It's also a little bit in Luke chapter 6, but the main part of it is Matthew chapters 5 through 7. Here's a good image that we've got of that, just for fun. And I don't know about y'all, but I like picturing, when I'm reading the Bible, I like picturing in my mind sitting there with those people. You know, where would I have been? You know, where would I have been in life? You know, that sort of thing. How would I have taken the message? Of course, I'm 56 years old, so there's different times in my life that I would have taken some of the things he said in this sermon different ways, right? I would have looked at it in different lights. I would have had different opinions about it. There's times I would have said, boy, I wish my brother would have been here to hear this. And then, of course, there was times I went, man, he is talking straight to me about that, right? I just like picturing myself being there. I mean, I like trying to think about where I'd be in life when I was trying to listen to this sermon. So I'm not going to give you all very much homework in the future, but I do want to ask you this one thing. Start trying to memorize and think about the Sermon on the Mount. You know, when you're trying to have quiet times at night or in the morning, where do I go? Start reading verse 5 through 7 in Matthew, really. That is basically the playbook for our lives. It should be. It should be. I mean, starting with Beatitudes. He jumps right out there and jumps in there with the Beatitudes on how we ought to be living each and every day, how our hearts, how our attitude just ought to be about everything, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the humble, the peaceful. If you starve for righteousness and you're persecuted because of it, you will inherit. I mean, those are the kind of things you want to memorize. You want to be thinking those things through as you're walking through life. So let's move on. Let's move forward. Talking about a life on purpose, a life that matters. Let's go to Matthew 6 and read the text for today, 19 through 21. Matthew 6, 19 through 21. So do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your heart is, there your heart will be also. So most of the time when people hear these verses, and yeah, you can definitely use it for this, they start automatically go to money, right? I was talking about money. It's talking about how I spend my money, what I do with it. But there's so much more to this than that, right? He's asking you what your hope is in. Where is your heart set? When he said, what does he mean when he says store up in heaven? Treasures in heaven. What does that mean? What's he talking about? Well, he's talking about the fact that you ought to have it in your mind that yourself is not your first priority, right? The people in the world around you ought to be your first priority. Moving forward for other people, the world spinning around you. There's a world spinning around out there, and it's not just you, right? What does that look like? That looks like loving your enemies, right? He talks about that more than once. Talks about forgiving people regardless, right? That's a tough one. Being generous to whoever and for whatever reason, right? Living a life that matters. Living a life on purpose. Looking out and not looking in. Leaving a legacy. So when I started thinking about this, I wanted to come up with some kind of good examples to kind of bring up today, and I brought some pictures, but first I found a video that I wanted to show y'all that is a good example of someone who had a life that matters. Let's watch this. Somebody tell him to turn the volume up.
And the stench was sickening. Yet, you can see that the time would come when New York would be built into rows of mountain straight streets and angular buildings. Only
So Frederick Olmsted, obviously he had a long-term, long-game vision of what to do, right? Like he said, he had no interest whatsoever in trying to get something done today, results right now. His vision was for something that he didn't even think he was going to get to enjoy. His results were going to be even beyond that. So that's kind of what we're trying to get through with this, about a life that matters, right? So he went on to do more than that. He went on to do a park in Boston. He went on to do the Niagara Falls National Park. He went on to do that as well. Several big pieces that he did. I mean, again, when he made those, he didn't get to enjoy the results of those by the time they were done. Somebody that had a total vision for the future. Having a life that mattered. Having a life of legacy, right? So let's go to, I've got some pics of some people that made a big difference in my life. So I want to show y'all some of these. Joe Gentry. Daryl was there, believe it or not. He might have been the one who took this picture. 1998, Joe was picking up his brand new Road King Classic. So Joe here was one of the king dogs at Central Freight here in Waco. As a matter of fact, he was one of the head honchos of Central Freight around the United States. But he made a big impact on me. He took me under his wing. I'm going to have trouble getting through this. He took me under his wing and pushed me through and said, you know, Jason, you can do this. You know, your employees are first. Your customers are first. You're last. He's been gone several years now, but we had a lot of fun. Let's go to the next one. I don't know if that'll be easier or not, but let's go to the next one. David Helms. Believe it or not, that's the first dyno wide glider with an Evo motor that came to Waco. He bought that for me new in '93 when I was still on Valley Mills Drive. Sorry. David Helms, he spent an entire career developing prosthetics for military veterans that came back with no arms, no legs. He was one of the first people to start building robotic hands and feet. Some of his ideas were breakthrough. They were breakthrough inventions. And he was in the Air Force himself, so he had kind of a tender, soft heart for that military mindset. So he spent his entire lifetime working on that. He went back to his home state of Oklahoma in probably about 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, and kept doing it there. And when he got there, he got together with the state of Oklahoma, the public school system, and developed their entire robotics department, their entire robotics education system. Because he had a passion for kids learning how to do the same thing, how to build prosthetics for people that needed arms, legs, feet, hands. Most of his inventions are still moving forward today. He passed away a few years ago as well. Dave Helms, had a lot of fun with him. Johnny and I went up and visited him back in 2005, 6, somewhere in there. I can't remember. We popped by and saw him in Oklahoma. Anyway, big impact person right there. Left a big legacy. All right, next. Gary Chandler on the black Springer there on the left. He and Becky. They owned a construction company in Corsicana for a long time. He passed away back in 2020. Anyway, he was a lot like Joe. He took me under his wing a lot. Of course, I was still a young punk kid, and he spent a lot of time sitting with me going, Jason, you can do this. You can do this. Don't give up. Everybody's in front of you. Just never forget that. And I didn't. Yeah, Gary's been gone. I miss him too. Yep, I miss all those guys. All right, let's go to the next one. So we can't do anything without Willie G, right? Can't do this without Willie G. Davidson. So that's me and Willie and his wife Nancy there in front of the Harley Museum in Milwaukee about 15 years ago. That's them. We're standing by my blue knucklehead. So the cool thing about Willie is obviously with a name like Davidson in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, he could have easily spent his entire life just sitting back and enjoying royalties his entire life, right? But that's the last thing he did. He had a total passion for people enjoying themselves on motorcycles, and he wanted to see people do that. His office door was always open. He and Nancy never flew in to Sturgis or Daytona or anyone else and hopped in a rental car and waved at a few people and left. They rode. They rode everywhere until they just physically couldn't do it any longer. They rode everywhere they went. And you'd see him on Main Street in Sturgis walking up and down the street talking to everybody about their bike. I mean, he was that passionate about it. I mean, he had a total passion for it. Gave me a lot of inspiration. We stood there and talked about my knucklehead there for about 10 or 15 minutes for, a crowd of people kept walking up to him, of course, wanting their picture taken, wanting to talk to him too, wanting his attention. But he was willing to sit there and talk to me for a long time about my bike. Big inspiration. Still alive. He's still kicking. He's 92, 93 years old, something like that now. Nancy passed, I think, back in 21. But anyway, yep. Willie G still moving along. Yep. People in my life that have made a big impact. They've left a legacy on my heart and on my mind. So, of course, that moves us to us. What kind of legacy are we leaving? Are we leaving a legacy for people that are around us? Are we mentoring people that are younger than us? Because every one of us can do it. Every one of us can do that. We can be mentoring somebody younger. Do we take time to sit and think in our hearts? Are we taking the passion to try to take away the treasures on this earth out of our heart and start thinking about the treasures in heaven, which is moving forward for someone else? Are we trying to leave a legacy? Are we trying to have a life that matters? Because we want the younger generation to have that same thing, right? I mean, when I think about impactful people, Memorial Day weekend kind of runs right along with it. When I was growing up in high school and I was finally able to ride a bike, I was finally old enough and big enough to ride a bike, I got to go riding with the guys. And back in the 80s, there were still World War II vets. They were still riding back in those days. So man, was I in awe when I got to ride with those guys. So for those of you who have been in the military, if you don't think the younger generation is paying attention to you and looks up to you, they are. Never think for 1 minute that they're not. You are making an impact. Never forget it, because it's sure making an impact on me. But that's the big question we need to be asking ourselves. How are we making an impact with other people? We need to be looking out, not looking inward, right? We need to be thinking the steps that it takes to do these things each and every day. Father God, I thank you so much for the word that you brought us in that Sermon on the Mount. There's so many things in there about what we need to be learning each and every day, about how you taught us how to live, how to treat other people, how to be forgiving, how to be generous, how to not forget those people that have brought us up and have taught us how to be adults. You've taught us each and every one of those things. Help us to think about and think through the people that we can be making an impact with each and every day, out on the streets, out in the workplace, people that we have hobbies with. Never let us forget that. We're still moving forward with this, Lord, with this biker church concept and trying to reach the biker culture out there, and we are. We're talking to a lot of people each and every week. We have a lot of fun events coming up, and we thank you so much for that. You've blessed us with this facility. This is fantastic. We get to stay here and get to worship here each and every Sunday. This has been a total blessing. Help us to not forget that. Help us to not forget others. Help us to understand that our life does matter and everyone else's does as well. Help us to keep punching forward for you. We love you. Amen. All right. So, Steve and the gang are going to be playing. We're going to have a little prayer time here. So if you've got some things in mind, if you've got maybe some people in mind that you've always wanted to make an impact with, that you want to talk about it with, you're more than welcome to come up here and talk to me about it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear what your ideas are. Let's talk about it. If you've got somebody that needs prayer, if you've got somebody that you've been wanting to pray with or pray for, I'll be up here. Guys, come talk to me. Shannon, she'll be up here. Ladies, if you want to talk to Shannon, you're more than welcome to. Pat and Deb will be up here if you want to pray with somebody. We'd love to hear from you. Come on up. Hello.